Ecotales production, we're calling it that for now. But this is a review of the pre-production work. Of course, the production happens away from here, but we have to touch base. And we need to touch base on where we're going, what we're doing, and how far we've come. Today, I'd like us to just go over the issue of the boards. So we have now reference boards, we have mood boards, now storyboards. And we are preparing, of course, to do the animatic. But before we do that, we need to get through character design. So we'll discuss character design, how we'll go about that, before we move on to the, you can say, sound design. We have to design the sound, which will be the next phase of work. And then after that, we now move into the animatic. Okay? So, welcome. And today's meeting may have to be 45 minutes because of just the timing. I started late and we still have another meeting to get through after this. So let me start with the main issue, which is actually the character design. And then I will go back. I think it's better to start with where we left it, which is on the storyboarding and the boards, so that we have that out of the way. And then we move into the character design. And then we move into the next steps. And I'd like this meeting to be one. It's discussive, so you can always, suggest what you want to talk about and ask questions. But also you can suggest ideas. The other thing I'd like is that we see it as a briefing, because when we leave here, now we have to get into the habit of presenting something next week. This is key. If we don't do that, we'll start falling behind with the client. And I need us to discuss the production from the perspective of the client as well. Okay, so where we left it, let me share my screen so that I can give a context to what we're doing. So I hope you can see I'm now showing the folder. So we have this folder. If you don't have this main link, because it's the main link to the whole production, I will share it with you again on the group if you don't have it. But this is the main folder for Ecotales. It has, let me just show you so we're clear. Now, it has these 4 main folders for the flow of work and tracking of everything. There's an admin folder, and I'll explain them so that you understand how we're managing the job. Ideation is what we spend a lot of time with the client doing, getting them to understand the nature of the production, how we're going to go about it, all that. But it's very client related. So the ideation, if I just go into it, is where we started. And it started off with a client brief. The client brief is never written down. The client just articulates the brief. I see I haven't uploaded it, but I'll upload the client brief here. But it starts with that. And once they gave us the brief, we interpreted it. In other words, we converted it into something we can use for production. And then explain to them how it can be useful to them. The production can be useful to them. That's really what the client's brief is about, or even the ideation is about. It's getting the client on board to understand that by animating or by using comics to produce their work, they will gain a benefit. It will be the best way of them getting their message out. So the client has a message which we are aware of, the eco message, which is using an ecotopian story to create a transformative effect on Generation Z. This is really what they want. They want to transform their littering behavior into one of activism for protecting and preserving the environment. So that conversion is what they want. And it's a transformational sort of message. And we've persuaded them that, if you do something using animation, it lends itself to different platforms that are digital, like social media platforms, and even the internet, just a website that can showcase some of their ideas. These can be used to create the transformational effect that they want. So I'll get into more details about that, because the ideation is constantly, you can say, guiding what we're doing. Actually, it's guiding what we're doing, because that's where the client meets us. They understand the idea. The big idea for us is to educate the Generation Z using cartoons in an animation. And also, you could say the comic, which is interactive. So we have an interactive comic and an animation which educates them. And then using social media memes, we make them advocates for change. Okay? It's not a hard and fast thing. Even the animation has some advocacy in it, and even the comic has a little bit of that, and even the memes have a bit of educative knowledge in them. So it's all mixed. But the primary purpose of the animation actually is to introduce both, you can argue, advocacy and um, to educate. So the animation does both. But the comic, which is on a website that we built for them, is mainly to educate. And then the memes are mainly to create a sense of activism within Generation Z. Okay? That's generally the rough spread of these things. Now, on the client, why it matters is because the client is not one person. The client is a trust called Amuka Twende. You can Google them and you'll find them. Amuka Twende um, is a Hindu trust, and it has an endowment fund and members who contribute to this fund in Kenya. These are Hindus in Kenya, and they try to use the money to do good things in the country. So one of the things that they have all sort of agreed that they should do and support is an initiative to reduce, or let's say to protect the environment by preserving it and protect it from human littering or human um, destruction by the lack of knowledge on waste management. So it's a waste management um, project which they want to fund. Okay. Now they feel that it's pointless, even though in leadership right now you have Generation X in leadership. It's pointless to target Generation X because to get them to change might be difficult. But futuristically, if you target Generation Z, with this change and attitude towards the environment can change. So that's why they're targeting Generation Z. In truth, they're targeting Generation Alpha, but Generation Z are the leaders of Generation Alpha. So they're looking at it in that hierarchy. Now, for us, we should never lose sight or oversight of that. They're a trust, number one. So whenever we produce something, we'll be working with their managers. There'll be someone who is assigned to us to make sure that we are producing something that meets their expectation. And it's not one person, it's a small committee of the main committee. But this committee has the job of interfacing between us and the members of the trust. And the members of the trust are Hindus in Kenya. I don't know if it's all of them, but it's a whole bunch of them. So when we produce something, it needs to fit the values and the expectations of the members. Okay? So that's how this thing is crafted. Now, just a small comment. In Kenya, but I think in Africa, but let's say Kenya for sure, East Africa for sure, animation is usually practiced within the communications or let's say advertising or you could say the PR industries. It's not a standalone industry. Animation is practiced because people need animation instrumentally to do something, to say something. So now, in this instance, this Hindu trust is using animation to bring about what they consider meaningful change. That's how animation is practiced. But why it matters and why I'm saying this is partly because if you're an animator in Kenya and you want to keep plying your trade, you cannot produce animation, let's say, artistically and hope to survive because the animation art market is not vibrant in Africa. It's not. Even the animation, let's say storytelling market for entertainment purposes, that's not vibrant. The storytelling one, and it's significant because we see it's vibrant in the West. It's also vibrant in the East. I'm talking of now animation for entertainment per se, and also animation for, um, you could say, art purposes. You're expressing your ideas, your feelings, and all that. Animation for that sake is popular abroad. So the influence from abroad might mean that we would now adopt this kind of approach. But there are cultural reasons why Africans don't buy art. Not that we don't like art, we don't believe in art or anything like that. There's just a cultural reason why we don't value art to the same extent that we put our money behind it, the way they do in the West or the East. It doesn't just apply to paintings and drawings, it also applies to animation. There's also a reason why we don't, in spite of the fact that Africans tell stories. I mean, that's the way we encode our indigenous knowledge. But in spite of that, there's a reason why we don't animate or make films in a vibrant way that the West do, to the extent that we put our money behind our stories or behind the entertaining or entertainment of our stories. We don't do that. And why I'm saying all this is partly because when we work, like now we're working, we can ask ourselves, so where can animators plow their trade? Well, what Africans are doing, and it's coming out when we look at what's happening on the ground, is they're willing to put money behind stories which we like telling that are conveying some kind of tangible benefit to communities. So, what is a tangible benefit? Well, we're concerned about certain things. We're concerned about disease, we're concerned about poverty, we're concerned about education, we're concerned about things that are primary for survival. So, if you can identify something that's primary for survival, particularly in Africa, we're concerned about that. So, governments in Africa put attention behind those things, and then the private sector puts its money behind that as well. Even government puts its money behind. So, those are the things we put our money behind, and this is by observation. What does that mean for us who are practicing in the creative economy? It means that in order for us to sustain ourselves, you know, to practice sustainably, we need to understand that particular sentiment, the one where people are willing to put money. I'm talking of Africans, not foreigners. Africans are willing to put money behind animation that we produce or any artifact or production that we do, simply because they see the value in it. That's an alignment issue. So we need to align what we do with what local, you can say investors, entrepreneurs, or even governments, institutions are prepared to fund. Okay. Now, I need to just mute this website. Okay. So if you understand that, then I won't belabor the point. My job here is as an animation director. I'm also a producer in this job. So my job is to align the studio with the interests of the client. And I want to now speak to the job from the perspective of the client. And it's kind of critical that we understand, because normally jobs break down at this point where we don't align the interests of what we're doing with the interests of the client. And I want us to align. So I'll speak first as a producer. So as a producer, I need to make sure that three things happen which align what we're doing with what the client wants. One is I need to align the budget. In other words, what we spend or what we expend is matching what they're willing to spend. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, I need to make sure that we align our drama. So we are telling dramatic stories, but we need to align our drama with the client's, you can say, message. They have a message. And as I said, it's an educated message and it's a transformative message or advocacy message. So it's these two things, but it's transformative. Yeah. So someone's put up their hand. Go ahead. Who is that? Gideon?
It's Gideon. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I meant to ask, is
Yeah.
it a bit too late to
Mm.
change a few things, like in the script and the visuals? Okay, we don't have visuals yet, but I guess that's what we are showing today. But is it a bit too late to change a few things in the script?
No. In fact, the script is being cast now, but you can change it. Yes, you can change the script. So all you have to do. So we have shared it. I'll show you since you're asking. Let me go there.
Yeah.
Um, you see here we have the ideation page. So let me go to the script. It's here. Okay. So the script is here as a. It's called Guardians of Garbage, and Guardians of Garbage is actually a limited series. Let me open it. Just double clicking. You double click on this one. This is the whole script. Hang on, it says Act 1. So this is Act 1. That's fine. And it's Gardens of Garbage. Now you can make the change here. I want to show you how to make it. It's still loading. Let me just go back while it's loading. I want to see the other acts. Versions are here. This is one. So
we can add our own like version of Act 1.
no, you edit
Then
what's there because client is also seeing.
oh,
Yeah. So this is what
okay.
Nicholas has provided. Now, I need Nicholas is the story writer or the script writer, so he's trying to harmonize whatever changes we make need to be in harmony with the client and all this. So he at least makes sure the grammar is harmonized. So we make the changes. He comes in, he harmonizes, and at the same time, client's message has to be agreed on. I come in to make sure. So I'm the advocate of the client. I come in to make sure that the client message is being read. So what I want to do is just to create the 3 scripts that we're working on for Act 1, 2, and 3. Let me just rename these just to remove this copy of that. And also this one. I'll just remove this. Yeah, it's a good question because that's what's going on right now. We're in the stage of concretizing the script, but we can still make changes to it. And if you,
I want.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. What I was what do you call it? I was leading to say or
Yeah.
is the client like set on the script already? Do they know like what the script looks like?
Okay,
or do they have an idea of what they want?
Okay, let me explain it this way. I'll just create this quickly as I explain, but I want to open this with Google Docs. So we have a Google Doc for this and a Google Doc for this. Open with the Google Docs. So this is how you change or edit. You come to the script, you open any one of these, it's available to you. And then on the side, you see David Mwanzi has already started commenting. Now you can make a change directly in here, but you have to go into this mode. You see on the side here, suggesting mode. This is like tracking changes in Word. But select suggesting, I've done it. Then you can start making changes here. And you can also write comments on the side. Once you start doing it, it becomes easy to do. It's not hard. So make changes like those. Nicholas comes in to see what can be incorporated, what is flowing, what is not flowing, and he also now works on it so that the harmony is there. The idea is for us to learn how to work together, and there's a whole discussion on that which we won't get into, but it's important that this script is evolved by all of us. Actually, it's not just a good idea; it's important. If we want this to be a success, then we should all weigh in on it and produce something that reflects, our thoughts. But one of the key things as a producer I'm interested in, as a producer now, is that we're a performing group. A performing group is a group that has a high output in terms, like now, if we say we're going to start editing this script and make a script that is the combined effort of all of us, within a time frame that's on a schedule, we do it. That's a performing group. We're able to do what we're saying within a time frame. A non-performing group can't produce work within a time frame. That's a non-performing group. So I'm very keen that we become a performing group. So a performing group is one which is critical in the sense of what it's doing, but at the same time accommodating, at the same time empathizing. You have to have a sense of empathizing with each other so that we can incorporate our ideas and see what's good, what's not good, what works, what doesn't work, and then we build up together like that. Okay, that's a performing group. So what I'd say, just to give you an idea of a schedule, let's agree that next week we edit this script in areas that we feel we're adding value, improve on the outcome. So I won't belabor that, but next week we'll take a look at what we've done. And as we do it, Nicholas comes in to harmonize, to ensure that the script is still flowing, it's still meeting the basics of a script, because we don't want it to be, discombobulated. We want it to be still have a good structure. So he'll make sure the structure is still there. And that's a good outcome if we can do it. As far as possible, I'd like to incorporate people, but not for the sake of incorporating people. The ideas must work. If the ideas don't work, then of course we have to make a case for ideas that work. Okay, so we kind of see how to talk our way through it. So I've answered Gideon that way, that there are 3 acts and therefore there are 3 documents. and you can edit them by suggesting online, and feel free to go ahead. I've created them here for you to see. So we have this Act 3, Act 1. Why is Act 2 not here? Let me do Act 2 again. Act 2, open with Google Docs. Yeah. So the 3 acts are now here. There's some things you mentioned, Gideon, which are important. Let's go over them one at a time. The one of the client. For example, to what extent is the client invested in this? So the client has read the script. The client has also, they've gone through everything we've given them. They've gone through the storyboards. They've gone through the initial character sketches. They've gone through the story. Let me come out of this now for a second. The story is here. They've gone through what we call the scope. So this scope is an interpretation of their brief. So the scope is something they're familiar with. It's just what I spoke to you about, educating and advocacy. So they understand the scope. But this one, the narrative, is our solution, which is really the animation is the lead, let's say, instrument that we're using for this work. And we're introducing drama. So they've gone through this as a story, the narrative, Act 1, 2, and 3. It's a summary, actually, of everything, not the full script. It's just a story. And they've gone through that. And then they've gone through the synopsis. Now, this synopsis is a combination of the summary and their message, but it's a shorter version of everything. The story is a bit fleshed out, but the synopsis is a summary that shows how the narrative and their own, um, you can say, scope of work or brief come together. So for the client, synopsis is the most important. That's where we spent the most time so far. And we've gone back and forth over it because they want to be clear that their message is not lost and their message is clean. They want to be sure of that. So, so they've spent most time there. And they took their time to understand our narrative. Now, in essence, they've accepted the narrative. It's a story written by Nicholas, which I mean, it's not even just Nicholas, it's a story written also, initiated, in fact, by Gideon. I remember you saying that you were the author of the original idea, and I remember you presenting this original idea. So you can say that you're actually a co-author in this. And that narrative, the drama, let's say, the client has said is a good drama. They like the way it appeals to Generation Z. They feel, although the client is not young, the client is old, but they feel as if that narrative appeals to Generation Z in a good way, so they understand it. That's number one. Number two, it allows for very many scenarios and sub stories. It's got many things that you can put into it, so they like that. They also like the fact that it has places or creates opportunities where they can feed their message. So let's talk about that because this is key to when you're writing all this. The client is most interested in where they can feed in their message. The way this story is now going, and the big idea behind this story is that Mother Nature is informing human beings about what's going on with her. And the environment is Mother Nature. So when you're destroying it, Mother Nature is hitting back. Okay, so there's that. Mother Nature also tells you what to do and what not to do if you don't want her to hit back. That's what Mother Nature is doing. So this is part of the education. Again, remember, it's Mother Nature who is informing. So it's believable that Generation Z, by listening to Mother Nature, can have the roadmap to save the world, if I may use that phrase, that other generations don't have. So Generation Z doesn't have to take its cue from Generation X or Generation Millennial or Generation Baby Boomer. It doesn't have to take its cue from that. Generation Z is taking its cue from Mother Nature, and that's almost a ordained authority. It's because the universe was created by God. So you can see, if you think of it that way, Generation Z is in touch with God, if you like. That's really what this is about. Now, the client is happy with that. They're happy with the idea that the young people are listening to the planet, and the planet is talking. It's talking to everyone, but the young people are listening. And because they're listening, they're able to pick up what the planet is saying. Now, just like our mythologies, like you can say religion, even the Bible, let's take it to be a myth, to be a script, or let's take it to be a drama. It talks to us in ways that you might miss if you don't pay attention. So Mother Nature is talking to us all the time in ways that we might miss if we don't pay attention. For example, Mother Nature brings animals to talk to us. That's what this story is about. So now it's ants that are coming and they're talking to us. And when the ants talk, you may miss what the ants are trying to say. You might just ignore them or think that you're superior or whatever. But there's a nature of humans that makes us ignorant. So if we listen, we get the message and we save the world. That's the kind of thing. So what is Mother Nature saying? And we want to problematize that actually. And this is the opportunity I'm talking about. Clients are very happy that we've created moments when they can come in with this message, which can be complicated sometimes, but we can break it down then. So in this story, ants are carrying the message. Okay, so ants bring this message about packing and all this. That's the client's message. So the client's interest is right there. However, for us, that's a bit of a devil in the detail because it's a distraction from the drama. So we have to find a way, and this is our challenge, to make the communicative message of the client of this whole packing business seamlessly fit into the drama so that it doesn't break the immersion of viewers. When viewers watch, they feel, oh, this is all part of the narrative. You see? It's like when you watch a movie and then there's a big story time that comes up where they're explaining some history or they're explaining some technicality or some technology or they're explaining about aliens. You see, this is that moment. It's almost a Scooby Doo moment where they're now giving you all this stuff and you're wondering, okay, that's interesting, but where is it coming from? You see, so we don't want to break the immersion. We want to keep the immersion, but it has to flow so that people feel as if that was a necessary step in the story. Okay, that's on one hand. On the other hand, we don't want to lose the Generation Z. Generation Z have to have a feeling at the end of this: I own this moment, and I can do this. Those two things. If Generation Z feel this is my message, and at the end say I can achieve it, then that's what the client will be happy about. That's what they're saying. Okay, so that's the goal. So when you're editing the story and thinking about the story, try to think of it in this kind of way. And why I gave you the story earlier about animation is that this is how the animators become busy in this country. If we don't do this, we will not be busy. We'll not be busy if we try to plow our trade, let's say, in the entertainment business. We will not be busy if we try to plow our trade in, let's say, the animation circuit. There are various reasons, arguments, but we will not be busy. We will be very busy if we're able to understand how to construct meaning on the ground for different clients. So this is just one. If we know how to construct the meaning, the clients will give us the money and they'll give us the work. And they have money for us. I mean, it's not the bigger money in the local market comes through this kind of client. And it's sufficient to keep us going and keep us sustained. So that's part of the thing that we need to understand that so that we can go. So it's not just about being artists or just about being entertainers. It's about being artists, entertainers that have meaning. Okay, and this is now the meaning we're constructing. Okay, so if you understand, then yes, I'm glad you asked the question because that's what we need you to do. We need you to go through these scripts and to co-author these documents. There is one line that I want to mention, but this line is that what's the difference, let's say, between you can say Western animation, and you can divide it into, let's say, what the US does, what Canada does, and then what Europe does, like what they do in France or what they do in the UK. You see, that's part of the Western side. And then the difference between that and what anime does the Japanese or manga, and the Chinese, the Koreans, they have industries there. What's the difference between those industries and each other, and then those industries and ours? I want to suggest something that there's always something that the, let's say, Orientals do that the Europeans don't do, and the Europeans do that the Orientals don't do. One of the big differences right now, I mean, it's something we can also, I think we might have discussed this before, but one of the big differences is that in the East, they like manga is the culture that informs anime, and anime stories are rich because of manga tradition, and manga tradition goes back 5,000 years. So they don't run out of stories and they don't run out of themes, and those themes are already in the psyche of people from Japan. So in that sense, anime has its own flavor, and it's very story driven. In the West, it's not story driven. In the West, it's more about um, how do you say? It's not steeped in that kind of tradition. It's either you're talking of humor, you're talking of some kind of drama, but it's nothing that's ever that serious. That's how the West has fashioned this thing. But not all studios. Disney, which is the biggest studio with their movies, those ones got into storytelling in terms of telling folklore stories. And now they've become international, so they do it for the whole world. So they have that going on because Disney is quite strong in the market. Um, what is the unique for Africa? What I see as unique is this capacity to tell stories together. None of these people tell stories in the way Africans tell stories. And Africans tell stories in a kind of communal way, which we know. I won't get into it in detail, but if we can develop a methodology of telling stories together, I think that's powerful. And with time, we can master it and make it a distinguishing factor of ours, of our animation method. And that is the African method, in other words. And we can put it out there the way manga and you can say other genres are out there, standing out on their own. So pole pole, but that's what I'm. That's why I'm encouraging you now. Let's get in. Let's all put in our ideas, and then let's see how we can make a strong representation for ourselves based on our collective ideas. Okay. Do you have questions anyway? As I speak, just feel free because I'm only introducing, and I'd like to hear from you. So that was a good contribution, Gideon. I will share this link again just so that we all have it. If you have questions, feel free. If you need add something or ask something, also feel free. All right, so ideation has taken the better part of 3 months actually, and this is an indefinite period actually because it depends on the client's availability, how quickly we can get through it. Now we got through it. The client has accepted. We are able to invoice. They've asked us to invoice, so I'm going ahead to invoice. And I want to tell you about the practice of animation. So animation works like this, and it evolves in this way. It's not something that is prescribed by one person. Is that clients want to pay for work that is done. They don't want to pay for work that is not done. They don't tell you that. They actually don't tell you that. But that's just how they're wired. I mean, if you start asking, okay, so here's the quote, and here is the let's say storyboard, or even just say, let's say this is the quote, this is the production, this is what we're doing, and you write a summary of what you're doing. Just that. Yeah, clients will say that's nice, but they won't pay, and they won't tell you why they're not paying. If you did the same thing, let's say they wanted to buy a computer, and you gave them the quote, you said this is the picture of the computer, these are the specs. Now you pay them, you give you the computer. They will pay, then you give them a computer. In other words, in some industries, they're prepared to pay first. With the animation industry, they will only pay for work done. I'm summarizing, big story, but I'm just summarizing. What does it mean? It means we always have to be ahead as we start. When I'm telling you we're starting, it's because we have a body of work that the client has seen and they're saying, I will pay for that. That represents the starting point. But actually, there's a lot of work already gone. And now they are paying for the work that's already gone. You see? And in the beginning, ideation is the persuasion of the client, making the clients do something they would not ordinarily do. That's actually what's happening here. They were not on track to produce an animation, they were not on track to produce comics, but we persuaded them that this is the best way. So they've accepted, okay, we would not have done it, but now we'll do it. So that's how we're here. So they're paying, and that means we're starting. Now, normally, we would prefer that you give us 50% or even 30% for us to start. So now they're making their 30% contribution now. That's what they're doing. And now they're saying to us, okay, you guys go ahead and start. But they're paying only because they saw something. I'm letting you know so that you know that. It's not, I don't want to mystify this process. It's a very methodical process. So that's one. Now, what I need us to do is to go toe to toe with the client. The client will keep paying actually, but they'll only pay if we manage their expectations. If we produce things they don't expect or we do it in a time frame that's outside what they expect, then they will not pay. they'll get back into that phase where we have to persuade them to pay. You see, and I don't want us to get back to that. We've started off now. I want to maintain. So the next thing I want to do, having gone through ideation and produced those documents, is to go into pre-production here. Now, like I was saying, my job here is as the producer as well as the director of animation. So what does the producer do? I have to produce activity sheets for everyone. That's one of the things I do, and I do it now in pre-production. Activity sheets will tell you what you're doing, what is your role. Okay? Now, let's get into that because I want to give us roles. All of us are going to have a role in pre-production, we'll have a role in production, and we'll have a role in post-production. And I'll define your role as we go. All right? Now, here are the steps or the different themes under pre-production. There's character design. I put it first. The order doesn't matter so strictly, but definitely it comes before storyboarding. So we have character modeling, then we have storyboarding, then we have animatics, and then we have this short list. This short list comes even before storyboarding. So let me put it here. Now, I should say animators don't produce shortlists. We don't. But if it's there, we will not say no to it. That's the attitude of animators towards it. It's okay, because it informs the storyboard. The storyboard is the shortlist for us. Okay. So let me just rename this one to be number 4. Well, animatic is number 5. So, and then sound design is number 4. Okay. So this is the flow. So we have our characters, then the shortlist, which is there, and then we have the storyboard, okay, which is also there, and then we have sound design. So we're at this stage now of character design. That's what we want to do, and I want us to go through that, and then we come to next week sound design. Yeah, someone's hand's gone up. You can speak.
Yes, I have a question. Is this how are we designing the characters? Is it in 3D or 2D? Are we doing both? Is it a mix?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. I'll explain it, but I'll tell you the answer first, and then I'll explain it. We're doing 2D animation, but using a 3D pipeline. So we're treating, let's say, we're using 3D as an instrument to produce 2D. Okay, and that's different from how 2D is traditionally produced, frame by frame. It's different, but there are moments where if you have the 2D skill, you understand 2D animation, you understand how to draw, then it improves the quality of your work at the end. But we're using a 3D pipeline to produce 2D animation. So we're treating 2D animation as a style of 3D. That's what we're doing. And one of the reasons we're doing this is mainly to control the quality and for the purpose of speed and efficiency. It's much quicker and more efficient for us to do that than it would be for us to use the traditional frame by frame animation approach. Even the capacity to do it is not developed in this country. So we have problems with doing it. So, but if we use this kind of pipeline, we can actually efficiently produce something. So that's how we're going. And the answer is we're doing a 2D look and feel using a 3D pipeline. I'll explain it just now. Okay, so we've started with the shortlist. We moved on to the storyboard, but now we're coming to the characters, which we should have started with. And I'd like us to now produce the characters. So let's get into the character page like this. And I was talking about my role in this. So my role is to produce these activity sheets. You'll see them all over the place, but these are some I've produced just for the sake of this meeting and also for this week of work. The first thing I'd like us to do, let's just go into this 3D character software, character creator software. It speaks to Tim's question. What are we doing? So I'm opening that. All I've done here is put the software we need. Now, you've all learned how to work with 3D softwares. And that those 3D softwares are being used also. However, we start with character design using 3D character software or character creator software. Okay, and these are basically softwares that produce characters using a 3D methodology in a way that is realistic, which is one way. You can also say consistent. You can also make or cartoonify your character. They allow you to close your character, allow you to pose your character. You can even produce aliens. But these 3D character softwares have evolved recently into a niche of just character creating softwares in 3D. You can produce 3D animation with them, but they're not powerful when it comes to that. When it comes to 3D animation, then you want Blender, you want Animator, 3ds Max for Autodesk, you want Maya. You see, those ones are powerful when it comes to animating and storytelling like that. But these ones are more powerful when it comes to, let me say the word efficient, more efficient when it comes to character creation. They work in ways that Maya and 3ds Max and Blender don't work. To begin with, they work with libraries. The libraries have a lot of free models. So you start with those free models and you start configuring them. And because they're working on free models, that's just not how Maya or 3ds Max works. It allows you to be up and running very quick, and you don't have to be an expert actually. But if you are an expert, you get more out of it. Okay, so the starting point or the entry point is high, and you can produce results fast. Everything is pre-rigged, is pre-laid out, so the characters are laid out already. They're skinned, and all you're doing is specifying the expression on the face, the bone structure, things like eye size, stuff like that. The frown, you're specifying the human attributes. And then once you're done, you're done. That's your character. So they're quite quick like that. Then you clothe your character. Then you pose your character. So they're designed to work like that. Very much like Fuse. We worked with Fuse with some of you. So now I could have added Fuse to this list, but I didn't, partly because these character creation softwares allow for more more variety of character than Fuse. Fuse characters, you can spot them from far, but these ones are much more varied to the extent that they're more unique. So of these two that I'm recommending, DAZ 3D, and these are not a limited edition. I mean, there are many others, but these are the leading ones. So DAZ 3D has overtaken Posa as, I would say, the leading character studio or character creation software. But it's owned by the same people, I believe. I'm not sure if they. Sometimes people are buying companies. So, but the guys who made DAZ 3D made Posa, and I believe they still own it. Posa still exists as Posa 13, and DAZ 3D still exists, or it's new compared to Posa. Okay, and I've tried to write or speak to the advantages or the differences between DAZ 3D and Posa 3D. For our purposes, you can work with either. It's just up to you. I would even like you to explore both and just see which one works for you. I'm familiar with Posa because it's the older software. So when I started, it was only Posa. But then DAZ 3D has come up strong, and I'm interested in it because it looks like it has a lot of things that it has improved on in Posa. But Posa's strength is the library is massive. But DAZ 3D borrows from the same library. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Most models, most character creation softwares don't know how to model Africans. All they know is that Africans are Wazungu with black skin. That's all they know. So you take the character, and then they have some stereotyping, like they'll say, okay, Africans have thick lips, thick nose. They do things like that. But if you look at the African, you can't even recognize them. You see, for us, if I see Mwangi, I can tell, Mwangi, I can see his tribe. When I meet with Tim, I see him, I look at him, I can tell he's Kenyan. You see, so what is Kenyan about Timothy? And what is, let's say, Kikuyu about Mwangi? You see, now a Mzungu can't answer that. But as Kenyans, we just know. So these two softwares give us a better chance of modeling our character to look to us Kenyan. And we got to do that so that we're relevant and we're targeted. That's why I'm saying this. And I want us to take a week and to build our character and to make our character something that we can recognize or someone we can recognize. So these two softwares allow you to get into it. Even Fuse does, I think, to a certain extent. But these are the leading ones. I just left out Fuse this time. Okay. Now, I've created another document here. I want to show you for the purpose of this week. The document is called Well, it looks like the internet is gone. Okay, no worry. What I've done is I've created a document where we can agree on which character we're working on. And I'd like, we all need to be familiar with the story, but Nicholas can help us to guide us on the characters, even in Purity, because you've worked on the storyboard. Which characters do we have, and which ones are we going to distribute to each of us? So here you put your name. For example, I can put Mwangi here. Let me say Gideon and Timothy. Purity, will you be involved in this? I can put your name here. I'll put Nicholas like this. Okay. And then, in fact, it should be the other way around actually. Let me put these names next to the character. So I'll put the character here. This is the character. So we have David. I should put him on the other side. Yeah. So this sheet is an activity sheet, and it's really assigning the task of character design to each one of us. So let's say we have the main actor here is Shiku. All right. What I need you to come and say, I will take Shiku. We have Kolo. We have Njoro. We have Baba Watoto. I don't know his name. We have the super villain. The I don't know what we can call him, but we have him. Super villain. We have the super villain crony. Let's call him villain. Villain. Is that it? And then, yeah, so I'll say we have the cronies. You'll see them in the story like that. We have the ants. So there's ant one, leader. I forget the names, but again, Purity, you can, if you remember them, just let me know. I can write them in now. We have ants two or ants two. We have ants three. And then we have ant background character. Let's just call them ant generic one. We'll just call them that for now. Okay. All right. So these are the characters. Let's just count them. Like that. Those are the characters for this episode. And the episode, remember, we've got to get used to the episode. The episode here is, if we go back, okay, it's just taking time, so I won't spend time on it. But I'm going to write here episode 1. I'll put the name. Now I need you to fill out here. I'm not filling it out for you. You fill out your name, but do it as you read the script. See which character you feel you want to work on. Pick 2 characters each. All right, pick 2 characters each, and the main characters are these ones. These ones are the main characters. Someone's coming in. Yeah. Hi, Jake. We're still in this meeting, but you can join us. There's no problem. Then we'll go to the other meeting. Yeah, so I've highlighted these ones, and I'm going to fill them in just to show you that these are the main actors. These ones, okay. The generic actors are completely background characters. So these ones, we can give a different color, maybe the gray, like that. Okay. But feel free. If you notice there's a character that I've left out, just add. You can add to this document. But I want us to put our names beside a character. We pick two and we produce them. That's the homework, actually. That's the work I need us to do for next Thursday. And it doesn't have to be perfectly done, by the way. Next Thursday, I'll be introducing now what the answer to Tim's question. What method are we using? So once we have the 3D character and you've posed them, then I'll show you how to cartoonify them. Okay? And we'll do that for the next week so that we have now cartoonified characters. Now we need harmony, so we need to have cartoon characters for the animation, cartoon characters for the comic, and the same cartoon characters for the memes. So we'll go through that. Okay, so we have the, of course, 3D character, and then the cartoonified version. And it's the cartoonified version that we'll be using. Now, I'm going to put, this is a link which I'm going to put on my drive. I'm going to put the installer for the latest DAS 3D and the installer for the latest Poser 3D. These are, these I got them from torrent sites, so they're not. I've not bought them, but we can use them for now just to see how they work. And if we find there's some utility in them for the purpose of this work, we will buy them so that we have them as part of our workflow. If you notice that you need to buy a plugin, let me know, because we need to budget that. Next week, I need us to budget it so that we buy any plugins we need for either DAS 3D or for Poser 13. We also may need to buy library characters, because some library characters are not free. They can cost even $1, $5, $10, like that. If we see a library character that really will improve on our workflow, let's identify that, and then we get it so that we have the things we need to go into production, starting with the software, and then we move into these other things like the library characters and the plugins. Okay? As far as possible, we use what's free, but when it's no longer possible, we just start buying. Okay? So using them for free is like exploring. All right. Now, the next thing in this character segment is these tutorials. I identified a few tutorials which will help you to get started. These are just video tutorials, so I put them in on a sheet. For DAS 3D, I found these ones, which are good enough. Once you go through these are not complicated softwares, but the things that you need to be up and running. So this first one is just a beginner's tutorial, get you up and running. It's a good one. Then this one is to help you to make a face by transferring it from a picture. So if you see a picture you like a photo or just any picture you have, you can transfer that face into your character. So this tutorial shows you how to do that. That's a very useful skill because then you can work with even a sketch. You can draw your own drawing and transfer it. That's for DAS 3D. Then for Poser 3D, there's this one. I chose these because they're good in helping us to model African characters. So try this. I put 3 on this, and you can see how they can help. But again, very straightforward softwares. If you know how to use Maya or Blender or 3D Studio Max, those are complicated compared to using these ones. Okay, so this is straightforward. But learn this, make sure you install them, and then go ahead and pick your character and produce your character in 3 poses within Act 1, for example. 3 poses within Act 2 and 3 poses within Act 3 of your character. And then produce character models. Your character facing the front, facing the 3/4 view, and facing the side view. Okay? Once you have those views are called character model views. If you have character model views, and then you also have post sheets, there'll be 9 in total, 3 for each act. You're done. That's it. That's all we need. One of the critical things of your character is the wardrobe, because they're who they are, not only because of how they look and their shape and all that, but their wardrobe. It also makes them who they are. If you're doing any of these main characters, there are 5 of these main characters for this first episode. If you're doing any of these 5, they must pass the silhouette test. The silhouette test is where, if you make a silhouette out of the character, you can tell it's the character within this production. So what about them makes them unique in the silhouette? Okay, we'll discuss it. It's an advanced feature, but it's one of those things that the main character should be recognized in a silhouette. Okay. All right, that's the work that we need to do, and I hope it's kind of clear to you. There are some things which you can use as reference. I mean, because we already have a storyboard, so that's kind of nice. The storyboard's here. You double click on the storyboard. You go to. Did you put up the thumbnails, Purity? Yeah, she's put up.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that. So this one thumbnails, is everything in it, like Act 1, 2, and 3? I see 2 files. So the first one is what, and the second one is what? Just to be clear.
I think the first file, it's you that uploaded it. It has the 3 links. And then the second, yeah.
The second one is what you've uploaded now.
Yes.
All right, let's check out what you've uploaded. What I've uploaded, those links don't work, so I'll delete it. Okay. So this is a thumbnail version of the storyboard that PwC has done. Okay. And there's an Excalibur link here. You can try it out to see if it works. So Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. All right, so that's good because the thumbnail, the client doesn't see the thumbnail, but it's for us. It's to help us. This one I'm going to delete because it's not working, so I'll move it to trash. Thumbnails, yeah, so that's it. You can check that out as a resource. Then we have sketches. These sketches are part of the storyboard. So if you come to Act 1 here, it's been done in Storyboarder. So this is a Storyboarder file. If you have Storyboarder installed in your machine, you can open that. But if you want the PDF, you go to Export, and the PDF is here for Act 1, Storyboard. So that is helpful. It's detailed, but you'll get to know how your character is going to be portrayed inside those storyboards. So there's Ecotales Act 2 and Act 3 also for those. So check them out because you want to produce your character knowing their role. So as animators, the storyboard is our blueprint. It's our Bible. Okay, so that's where we've reached. Okay, now the client has no capacity to understand thumbnails of a storyboard. They have a very low capacity, very low, to understand a storyboard. You really have to hold their hand to go through it. They don't understand. It's a technical document, so it's not for them. What they will understand is the animatic. They'll understand that. And I've discussed with them, and they're waiting for the animatic. But in order for us to do that, we have to do our characters, okay? Then we need to build the storyboard with our characters. So that will become what we're calling our storyboard artworks here. We've already done the sketches and the thumbnails. We have a kind of structure, but then we need now to translate into that our artworks. And when I say artworks, it's just a way of saying that this is the final storyboard, and we're now putting in our characters so that they can be part of it. Okay? The way we put in our characters is not detailed, it's just outline mode, but we will do a treatment. I've not added treatment here, I'm going to add it just now. A new folder here called treatment. Treatment is going to take a scene, a typical scene, and render it to completion. It's just one frame in a scene and render it to completion. And you find Act 1 has 3 scenes, Act 2 has 3 scenes, Act 3 has 3 scenes. So we'll render those scenes to completion so that the client can see how the final will look like. That's the treatment. All right? That's done at the same time that we're doing the animatic. The animatic requires sound. So we're going to work on sound after we're done with the characters. So next week, we present our characters. The week after that, we present our cartoonified characters. And then after that, we do the sound design. Okay, that means all the voiceovers. By then, in 2 weeks' time, the script has to be cast in stone. It has to be cast in stone. But we'll do the sound design, which involves voiceovers. It involves um, sound effects and soundtrack. So we'll go through that. And then we'll do the animatic. So the animatic, Nicholas is an editor, so he's going to edit the animatic. But he works very closely with sound production and you know and then edits the animatic. But the rest of us, we're working on treatment. And I'll give you all a scene treat to completion. So this is the look and feel. We'll agree on that. That's the plan for pre-production. Okay, then after that, we go into production. All this should take 1 month. But we have to be steady, and everyone has to kind of achieve what they're doing. So the role of the producer is to manage these sheets that I produce. So I'm showing you them as we go. These stories are not done by the producer. Producer is not concerned so much with the story details, but I'm concerned with the distribution of work. So this is what I'm concerned with. This one, I'm also concerned with, how you get going, these tutorials, training. I do all the training. That's the producer again. And then making sure you have what you need, like the tools. And that's why I'm saying we will buy these softwares, by the way. But I don't want to buy anything when we don't need it. So I want we try out, we make sure it's working. I can see the case for buying, and then we can now see how to get them. See? But so let's start by downloading, and I'm going to put the direct link for you to download with the instructions for you to try out. Okay? So we try them, and if they work, then we get them. Now, the role of the director is quality control, quality assurance. Make sure that your characters are all consistent, and at the same time of a high resolution, or let's say a decent, they're recognizable as characters, and they're fitting the story. The director is responsible for the story. How that story comes out and is played out on the screen, that's the director's role. Okay, so I'm playing both roles, and I'm just guiding you so that you can see clearly. The blueprint is the storyboard, but it feeds off the script, and the script feeds off the synopsis, the story, and the story feeds off the synopsis. There's a codependency in this kind of chain. And someone was asking about changes. Yeah, if you want to make changes on the script, this is a good time. We have 2 weeks to finalize the script. Okay, so once it's finalized, we're there. So the script writer's job is to make sure they maintain the structure and the flow. But the job of all of us is to make sure that this is targeted to Generation Z. Okay, so we go in and add our ideas. I hope it's clear. If you have questions on that, feel free. Anything that you'd like to ask on this, feel free. Anything that you'd like to ask, I'm open now. Anything? Okay. If there's nothing on that, that's good. What I'd like to say in closing, because now we can close, is that the next thing I will do is, as a producer, is to prepare contracts for all of you, so that you know how much you're earning based on the work that you're doing. Okay, and that's why I say do this assignment, because the contracts have whatever you're doing. So if, let's say yes, there's a hand that's gone up. Gideon, go ahead.
Sorry. Just finish first. I had a few things I wanted to talk about.
No, you can talk. I'm going to talk about the contracts, but you can go ahead and talk, and then I'll tell you about the contracts.
Okay, so sorry. Since we are about to start with the characters, shouldn't we figure out a style so that we don't just go haywire and everyone makes their own kind of style with the characters or whatever happens? Shouldn't you all at least have a uniform style for that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and the answer is yes. We all need to have a uniform style. So next week, when we meet, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to discuss style. This week is kind of, I want to consider it basic, because I don't want to assume we're at the same level. I want everyone to install the software. I want everyone to learn how to use the software. by modeling or let's say creating your character. So that when we meet next week and we're doing style, we're going to apply the style to your character. But the discussion of style, what we've just mentioned, is the subject of next week's meeting and next week's work. It's all about stylizing it in a cartoonized way. We'll agree on it. We'll sit together and we'll agree on it. And but we'll do it after this stage is done so that we're all at the same level of understanding. We know how to use the software. We have a character. We're familiar with them. That way, when I'm now taking you through the steps of stylizing, you can see that you can apply it to your character. You see. So we'll do it. We'll do it next week.
Okay, thank you.
You had another question?
Not really. I think the rest we can talk about them next week.
Okay.
Or rather, wait, about the script thing, because I did want to just make a few changes
Yeah.
in how the story is told. Instead of, as I read the story, I felt like we were blatantly putting out that we are telling this story so that people can learn to keep the environment clean. But then, if you teach people like our age or younger people, or honestly anyone, if you just tell them what you are there so that they're learning, then they tend to not pay attention. So I felt instead of we could find out an easier way, sorry, not an easier way, a more hidden way of telling the story. So it could be like instead of, for example, when the two boys, Kolo and his brother, are discussing about how the ants were acting. Instead of just blatantly saying that the plan is for them to start cleaning up, they could just like start doing it, and then I've been referring to them as the Yakuza in my head, but the bad guys notice that like, there's a place that's been cleaned, and now like the reason they came is like one of their products or something couldn't pass through that place easily because it wasn't hidden. So it was more the matter of the script.
Yeah, yeah. So I like that. Already like it. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Why don't you? So I'm agreeing with it totally. So to go in and add those components that you feel here it's too obvious and you want to reword it, just reword it, so that we can see this is your solution or proposed solution. So go ahead and do that. And yeah, and everybody the same, so that we have a script where everybody has weighed in the way that they feel would relate to the target market. What I like about what you said is that you're trying to persuade Generation Z. So that's powerful. That's kind is in line with that.
Yeah, because I'd rather the story be more we've just told them a story and they're getting something from it instead of just blatantly having them know that we're trying to teach them about cleaning stuff up and then telling them a story about and we're constantly saying that you're cleaning this up. It would rather just be a story,
Yeah.
and then there's like a hidden moral that they naturally understand from it.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
So go ahead. I think I'll give you a green light on that. It's good that you're talking like that. So that's good. So yeah. Okay. So anyone else who wants to add something? And if you have anything, always feel free. You can always just interject. There's no worries. I will add on the contracts that so how the contracts work is that I assign and distribute work equally, and then you get paid according to your role in the job. So the way we do the roles, we have several roles. The first role is the internship role. If you're an intern, then that's a stage. If you are an apprentice, it means you're not an intern. It means you've done internship. That means you have some body of experience there, a few months or maybe a year. But now you're an apprentice. So that's a stage of experience of this kind of work. And then the next stage is that of a professional. Apprentices can last, an intern can last 6 months max, and then an apprentice can last 1 year max. In other words, 6 months to a year for an apprentice. And then you can move on to a professional who we look at as someone who has at least 3 years now of knowledge. And then beyond that, you become a seasoned animator. So that's like 5 years. It can be 6 years, but let's say 5 years minimum you have at least. And then, of course, 10 years, and then you're a guru. You're just someone who you're the level of guru. So you can actually be a director or a producer or take up multiple roles as a team leader or something. Yeah, so those are the stages we go through. And that helps, it reflects on your contract to help guide the price range that we attribute to you for the work that you're doing. So you can be even an intern, but if your output is high, you can earn according to that output because there's an output component as well as a price based on your experience. So one of the biggest differences between, let's say, a guru and an intern and everyone in between is the level of supervision needed for someone to get something right. In other words, for you to produce work that is um, um, being approved by the client. You see, in Kenya, for you to sustain yourself in this business, you have to be able to produce work that clients will accept. So experience is one of the best teachers because clients are multiplicity, they're all different. And when you've worked with a few different types of clients, you become familiar with the way they expect things. So that helps you to craft your trade to them. And that's really how you become a producer or even a director of animation because you're able to understand your clients, interpret their work, and then produce work that they will accept. Okay? Now, sometimes, in fact, this pre-production is quite sensitive. You cannot farm this work out to any studio abroad, like to the east, let's say, the Far East. You can't say that take this work and produce it for the purpose of X. Because, our people will be changing it, they'll be rejecting it, they'll be not accepting and not paying, all those things. So pre-production is actually what makes it meaningful enough for our clients to pay. And once we get into production, the clients accepted everything. They're going to pay now. Now you can farm it off to Japan or Korea or Singapore, countries like those, or even India, where they will now do the production for you. Why? Client has accepted, client's going to pay. All the key descriptors are down, and the client has approved them. But to get to that is a challenge. It's now what we're going through. I think ideally, I'd prefer we just do it. Why are we farming out? We need jobs. We also want to sustain our industry, so we should build capacity within ourselves to produce. So I'd rather we do the production here. So I would not farm it out. I'll just do it here, and we do it. And once that's done, then post-production comes. We will discuss as we go. Yeah. So if we're good, I'm going to check out that list on Saturday. I'll check it out on Saturday, and if I see whatever I see, I'll check it by midday. If you've not chosen a character, I'll choose a character for you. If you've chosen a character, I'll accept your character. But you need to have that so that I can now plot a path for you on a schedule that will show how you develop your character from design to, you can say, treatment, and then, of course, in production, how you're going to produce scenes and pre-visualizations using your character. So your character will be involved in various scenes and actions. So all that will be tracked. And with animation, we track all these things in advance. Once we have the storyboard, we're able to know how many seconds of your character will be in Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. So I'll do all that computation for your character. And now your contract will reflect all that. Okay? It's a starting point. The contract always represents a starting point. But you see, as we progress, the client who doesn't understand what we're doing can introduce changes that involve your character, and your character can feature more or less within the production. That can happen as we progress because they'll watch, and then they'll say, no, change this, change that. When they're changing, your character can feature more or less. It doesn't mean that you start losing money, but it does certainly mean that you could earn more money because if there's more work that is involved because of changes, which are proportionately huge, then it's captured by the contract. We can see what it was, and we can always reflect it so that it's always reflecting what you've done. So those are the kind of things we'll be discussing as we go. But it starts now, and I need to do, as the producer now, I need to break down and analyze all the activities, all our resources, all our skills, and then assign us to each one of those activities so that we can cost it and fit it into the budget, and you can get paid for what you're doing. That's That's how the animation pipeline works. Okay, so that's coming up next week. What I'm going to do before next week is give everyone their contract so that by the time we're meeting, you already know what it is, and we can discuss then. But I'll give it to you privately in the sense of share you with you your link, so you have that. And when it comes to discussions on your contract, you can always discuss with me on WhatsApp or on phone. We can also discuss. But next week we'll have a further discussion on it so that you know how it relates to what we're doing. There are other things that come, but they'll be in production, like things like the backgrounds. We're not putting them in pre-production. We'll put them in production. So for now, let's aim for what we're doing, and I want to wish you all the best. If you can make it, that's great. Clients waiting already, and they're having a high expectation that we'll succeed. Remember, it's a transmedia project, so it's not just animation; it's also comics and memes. So the production will reflect all those things. Okay, guys. So tell me if you have questions we can discuss or something that you need me to clarify. Anything? Okay, if there's none, I don't know if you've typed anything. Someone typed something here? No? Okay. So go through the folder. I'll share that link again so you have it. And if you have questions, you can still raise it in the group. So thanks for coming, guys. Let me say bye. We'll meet again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.